Hello and welcome to another episode of the WERF League. I am JT. You can find me on Twitter at JT underscore the ginger. This is Sean accompanying me this time. Again, you can find him on Twitter at Sean underscore Beatty. How we doing?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Last night recorded with Mikey and Aaron regarding the first trade in WERF League ever. So that was kind of fun to pick their brain, especially how it went down and within the context it did, because during our live draft, which was pretty interesting. They were DMing each other on the side, so that was kind of fun just to chat with them and get their take on it and evaluate it, and we just talked about a lot of positional needs and identifying those even in real time in the draft, and just being aware of that as a drafter for fantasy purposes was really cool. Today's episode, we're going to dive into wOBA and try to incorporate steals and strikeouts in terms of like a do-it-yourself for dummies type of metric. Ultimately, I just actually recently just read that wOBA used to include steals, but I understand why they took it out somewhat, because it is very much a player dependent skill and not really, I don't know, it's just one of those tricky ones, you know.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier before we started. It's even when we were talking about it before, it's kind of hard to narrow down how you actually incorporate the stolen bases into wOBA itself. So I get why they kind of backed off of including it into the stat itself.
So for fantasy purposes, I thought it'd be fun to try to put the genie back in the bottle and essentially incorporate a stat that is player skill specific regarding wOBA, and then incorporating steals and strikeouts. And kind of what got my brain going on it was, I don't know, a year or two ago, I came across secondary average, and I thought it was really interesting. So let me pull that up and share that, because it's a Bill James sabermetric statistic, and the formula is really straightforward here off of Wikipedia. Walks plus total base hits minus singles, essentially. So you're getting home runs, triples, and doubles, and then adding the net stolen bases. So stolen bases minus the caught stealing divided by at bats. And I think if we scroll down, we get some sweet names. Blast from the past. Go. Who's the
Chris
first
Davis?
name? Yep, first name you see.
David Ortiz? What is happening?
Right? That's like Jason Worth. Yeah, I don't know. I forget. 2013 is the last time this Wikipedia page was updated regarding secondary average. At the time, I reached out to some fantasy experts. I was like, have you even heard of this? And it was like 50-50 on like the 6 of them I was able to get a response from. They're like, oh, back in the cobwebs. But I think Batflip Crazy said it best. So Toby, definitely worth a follow on Twitter. He just said he just took it as it's really going to value people who hit home runs and stolen bases. Well, guess what? That is super valuable in fantasy.
That is fantasy
And
fantasy
it
baseball.
is. And I mean, it's one, I think Toby's really into evaluating player skills, and this is more of like results, but they shake each other's hands in some regards. So I got the inspiration off this formula. I was doing some dabbling into what it takes to calculate wOBA. And so ultimately, if I switch over Excel, is that showing it? I don't know if I need to reshare.
Not yet. Probably need to
Okay.
reshare.
All right. It's one of those. So what I did was, this is 2020 results here. So again, small sample, hashtag small sample. But taking a look into trying to kind of come up with your own way of identifying skills that would result in your 5x5 stats, fantasy baseball, but taking the wOBA part in terms of results of hits, home runs, and I'm kind of averaging it out. I'm doing caveman Marcel type math. Home runs historically have been right up under two of a weight of, and then triples right around 1.6, doubles around 1.2, and then single right around one or just 0.7. So the fun thing that we want to, or I wanted to do, and I'm bringing Sean along to help talk it out, just like we did with our plate discipline episode, is what weight do we give the strikeout, negative, I guess. What weight positive do we get stolen bases, and then negative to caught stealing? So I've been talking a while. What's your initial thoughts and ideas?
Oh man, I'm gonna get pretty deep in here. I would say my first gut is stolen bases is nice, but if this is like a straight up category, oh man, if this were real life, you'd have to break it down into stealing second versus stealing third, because one is inherently more valuable than the other. But if it's for fantasy purposes, it doesn't really matter which base it is. So versus a strikeout in especially modern baseball, it depends on the categories you're using. Obviously, if it's standard 5x5, a strikeout doesn't hurt you a ton. What do you have for strikeout right now? A negative 0.5?
Negative 0.5, whereas a single is 0.7 and a walk is 0.9. I think the walk is off of the average for wOBA as well as so 0.9. So we're kind of playing around with the three numbers and trying to keep to the historical weights of the wOBA. Right now, I have it at negative 0.5. I have a stolen base, the value of a triple, but caught stealing close to the value of a strikeout.
I would say gut reaction, not looking at it. This is the first time I'm looking at it for people at home. I would say a caught stealing is worth more negative than a strikeout if it's standard 5x5, because you've already done the work of getting on base. And depending on outs and all that situation, the odds of getting a run or doing something isn't nothing. I can't remember the exact Moneyball quote, but they did the numbers and the percentages of, even with 2 outs and getting on first base, what your percentage of scoring is historically, and it's not nothing. So I feel like getting caught stealing is a big, and especially with what we know about analytics and all that stuff, it's a big no-no. It's highly discouraged. That's why stolen bases attempts are going down. But I would say valuing a stolen base at 1.6 seems pretty high. But then again, if it's standard 5x5, if this was strictly fantasy, I would say it's pretty close. If it was real life, I would say it's too high. Because again, it's a separate category in of itself. And the only way you're gonna get a stolen base is to steal a base. You can't walk and then get a run in when someone else hits a home run and you walk on the bases. You didn't do anything for that one. Or you get, pegged or something and then the guy hits a home run. You had to steal the base yourself. So I say in fantasy 1.6 is probably pretty close. I'd say gut reaction say a little high, but it's probably pretty close to what I would weigh it.
Yeah, it feels weird just to throw random weights at it, because I'm sure some people that we'd tell this to, or the few people that watch this episode would attest to, is it just seemed arbitrary. But I tried looking it up on Fangraphs, just as best I could. Like I said, the historical weights is kind of what I was going off of, but Fangraphs, ever since they took it out of their wOBA stat, it's been a constant weight of 0.4. Well, that's great. I mean, they have a base running stat, but if it's a constant 0.4 every single year after year, to me, that's more in the real baseball realm than the fantasy baseball. And that's what we're trying to focus on is fantasy baseball. So I understand stealing
I would say
second and
this
stealing
before.
third is different value. I
Yeah.
mean, talk to John Birdie. He had that game last year. He stole every single one and home.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
I will say.
it's
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I will say the value. It's funny that you say it's from Fangraphs because Fangraphs would then imply it's based on real baseball. But like I looked at Manny Machado, he stole 6 bases, got caught 3 times. In fantasy, that's great because it doesn't really matter how many times you're caught stealing. I mean, as long as you steal the base.
That is true.
However, in real life, 50% is terrible. Getting thrown out 50% of the time is not good. And based on their numbers in this equation, it's still saying it's a positive. So
Sure.
I
It would
would
be
say that.
1/3 the time. He attempted 9. He got the stolen base 6.
Oh,
He
okay,
was
okay,
caught
okay,
3.
okay. So
That's how.
66. Okay, sorry,
Yeah, that's
I misread that.
how it's
Okay,
gonna break down.
got it. Okay, yeah. Oh, so he stole 12. Okay, it's still nice. It's still, but it. So he still was at 66%, and it's still really positive, though. Like that's not.
Hmm.
That doesn't lead me to. I would feel that even Fangraphs is that by saying that I would say Fangraphs is metric is values the stolen base or devalues the caught stealing too much. And if because that's where you got it from, and just for real life, it would devalue it too much.
Yeah.
For fantasy purposes, I would say this is pretty close to what we're looking for.
In
Which
terms
thank you,
of
Fangraphs, for screwing up.
fantasy, other than scoring a run, if you're caught stealing, I mean,
Yeah,
you are already got on base somehow. Other than missing the opportunity to score a run, what else are you really missing out on? Another stolen base if you started on first and got to second?
most people don't steal third anyway, so I mean, you're really just stealing second.
It's like, I mean, I would like to value caught stealing. I don't want, but I mean, even attempting a steal these days in terms of fantasy
Yeah.
is at least you tried. I mean, it is almost A for effort at sometimes is what.
With the strikeouts going up too, I mean, you could easily get stranded or with the contact being less and less, the grounding in the double play is less of a deal. It's just like getting left out on base, is kind of
True.
the thing. So I don't mind you going. Obviously, the rate needs to be reasonable. You can't be getting thrown out more than you're getting the base. But yeah, like this metric, I don't think is that bad when it comes to like looking at through a fantasy lens at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because that stolen
Oh,
base, again, when you hit that home run, you get everything. You get all 4 of the other categories. Stolen base is the only one you don't get. It's the only one, and so it should be held at a high value because that's the only way you're going to do it is to actually do it yourself and steal that base.
right. So now that makes me just kind of almost neglect caught stealing, but I'll almost in turn look at the walk being valued at 0.9
I mean,
and what would that
the caught
relate to
stealing. I mean,
strikeout though? Like if we're going to the walk strikeout, like comparing those two to each other, if 0.9 is the typical historical weight, what would be a strikeout if we're trying to factor that in?
well, innately, it has to be a negative because it's not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. So you right now, so stolen base is at negative 0.5, 3, and the stolen base is 3 times that. So I would say a strikeout, like in a 5x5, a negative 0.2 or something like that, really low. Because again, it doesn't cost you much more than that at bat.
Right.
And usually those strikeout guys, there's those high home run guys. So that's the give and the take with it. So you're going to take the strikeout because of the upside of the home run. So that's usually why I devalue it. However, I guess I realize saying it out loud, I can't look at it that way. I can't say like the guys who strike out the most hit the most home runs.
Right. Right.
Stan does strike out a lot. I bring it up to my guy who, Evan White right there struck out a bunch of times, did not hit the most home runs. So I think I'm almost going too low with it right now. What do you think, JT?
No, I'd mentioned John Birdie stealing 3 bases in consecutive order, and he had 9 total on the year in 2020. a third of his stolen bases on the year happened in one half of an inning of that,
Well,
whatever the game that was. I just remember, I think John Boy posting it, and just like he just had something on that pitcher that day where he knew when to go.
I mean, or there's a lot of the times where like stolen base too is the catcher, notoriously like a Mike Piazza noodle arm back there or something like that, like taking advantage of that battery combo, like if John sees it, like just go, just keep going. Or like John Lester, who never looked over ever. Just why aren't you stealing and being more aggressive? Make him throw the ball to first. Like, and then what was it like 3 years ago when he finally did and picked the guy off? Like
Right.
I can't remember who he picked off, but I didn't blame
This
him at all.
whole
Like,
time, yeah, the guy,
you make him throw to first. You like if he's not doing it, not even looking, you make him throw that ball to first.
Mm-hmm.
So you adjusted the
So I have stolen base at 1.6, caught stealing at negative 0.4, and a strikeout at negative 0.2.
I mean, how are you
And
feeling?
then
I think
and then
I
I
could be
just
talked either
reordered it.
way. I could be talked either way, a point up or down for strikeouts. I just feel like
I'm just looking at
it's
stolen
not
base
that
call,
big of
and
a
now we're
deal.
tweaking that though. What we just did, tweaking that, I do see more stolen bases. There's only a handful double digit, but there's no one over 20 up here. It's really is still valuing a low strikeout type player.
Well,
The
this
way
is a
we
shortened season,
currently.
so only one had over 20 last year.
True. Okay. Yeah. No, yeah. Good context. I'm like, oh, there he is.
53. How many times has he caught? Sorry, your cursor's 8. Okay.
So
Okay.
he's
going. Yeah, that was a lot.
yeah, that's a lot of attempts and just
That's a lot of attempts in 59
he played
games.
59 games. Yeah.
That's
Half.
how many times did he get on base? Does he have walks there? You have 56 hits, depending on what they are, and you have 11 walks, 66. So he went about a third of the time he got on base. I mean, minus give or take some hit by pitches or something that's not quantified on here.
Right.
That's a lot. Going about a third of the time you
Yeah,
get
I
on
don't
base.
have
He's
any
going.
intentional or hit by
Yeah.
pitch, but
I mean, it's safe to say a third of the time he just went.
I don't think anyone's intentionally walking him either.
I think they want him to swing. Looking at the 70 strikeouts next to his name, I think you want to throw him some pitches.
That almost seems like the reverse. If you're automatically walking Mondesi, you're almost like, well, what is it? Half the time he's going to attempt it, and then 24 out of the 32 times he's tried
he's going to get it. Yeah.
So yeah, 75% of the time he was so yeah, you yeah, never mind. Intentional walk, yeah, you're basically almost giving up a double.
I know Cody Bellinger didn't have a great year last year, but it's interesting to see Cody Bellinger and Mondesi very close in this metric right here. Kyle Tucker, though, like right below him, who did. Man, yeah, that is Kyle Tucker being right there is kind of surprising.
Right.
What didn't he do so well? I guess he stole 8 bases out of 9 attempts.
This is a walk to strikeout ratio. Seems a touch high. I mean,
Christian Yelich is up there at 76-4. I mean, and he's higher than him. I guess he just didn't walk a lot. 18 walks. His on base percentage is what dragged him down because his slugging is really nice too. Because he didn't get caught a lot. He had 9 home runs in 58 games. Everything else looks pretty. I mean, he could be a little higher, but everything looks pretty solid. It's got to be those walks. The walks are the only thing that's bringing. But man, a metric like that, just not having a lot of walks, he got dropped all the way down to 54.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the bottom now that we're kind of just.
Did he hit 6 triples too? Man, like yeah, that is surprising.
You're getting to the red zone.
Oh, Joey Bart. Oh, don't do him like that. Man, Mitch Garver. Mitch Garver fell on it hard. Joe Adele, not surprising.
Not a whole lot of full-time players.
I mean, that makes sense because you just struggle in
it. Yeah.
And it's also noticing here, no stolen bases. So if you just don't steal, it basically means, you need to steal some bases to even climb a little bit. Let's see, Oscar Mercado, he stole 3, was perfect. But obviously, just when your on-base percentage is 170, woof.
And who's the first? Here's the first person like over, definitely in terms of plate appearances over 150. Well, I mean, Marzara came close.
JT, it's 70. It's 75 strikeouts to 7 walks. Like that'll.
Oh yeah.
That is rough. That is.
Well, when it was recent news, Baez was open to an extension with the Cubs. I'm like, yeah, he wants to get paid before his skills deteriorate even further. I mean, like he seems like a great guy, but like, again, there is a business side to this, and
9 doubles, 1 triple, 8 home runs, and then just 75 strikeouts for that. Just that is not getting it done.
Right.
I mean, even Evan White notoriously struggled, and he walked what is it, 11 more times than him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just. I do like this metric. I still think we need to tweak it a little bit, but I do like the fact that
we are valuing steals. I mean, there is no one.
But again, in fantasy, 5. That is a very, I mean, that is a forgotten thing, and it's
something I need to be more cognizant of. I don't know what it is, but that is something I am aware of at least, but I haven't fully unless I'm fully thinking someone with steals. If I'm going after draft purposes, in my head, I'm like, where they bat in the order, what kind of offense they're on, just in terms of their batting skills in general. I'm more aware if they walk well than if they actually steal bases. And so we just had our home league. I punted steals and really didn't even think about it too much until partway through. I was like, oh, well, I guess I can value saves a little bit more and not care about steals and just go for all the other stats, because I'm luckily enough that league's head to head. But it was an auction. I had full ownership of my outcome, and I had anyone I could. Yeah, although I was chit chatting, I missed out on a few names I wanted to pick, but none of them would steal bases either way. So it is on me that I am not. I'm just out on people. Yeah,
around Mondesi level, because I want to see, because I think it's important for people to see. Yes, targeting stolen bases, and those guys, the VR and the Mondesi guys are they're stolen bases guys, and they might hurt you in other categories. But I think it's important to show that these guys do retain value in other categories. I think it's a little down. You just passed it down there. Right
Control
there.
Fine, but.
So that's stolen bases, if nothing else. The other numbers aren't even. I mean, there's still 6 home runs. It's just that stolen base does mean something. It to show you that hey, I know Mondesi. I'm kind of one of them. I kind of fell for this too. I'm not paying Mondesi for the value. We talked about we're in an auction draft, or in this league we talked about. I'm not drafting him, but there is. I kind of do the same thing with you. I just brush him off. I'm like, I'm not getting Mondesi. There's no point. But I feel like. I'm ignoring this because, again, based on the stat's not perfect. We're not saying that, but he's right around Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, Nelson Cruz, and Nelson Cruz had a decent year. It's yes, they're doing everything else. The home run fills up all of their 4 categories, but that stolen base is still a category, and Mondesi still got 33 runs. That's pretty solid. In that shortened season, that was nothing to scoff at. 22 RBIs from a guy, who bats leadoff and steals 24 freaking bases. You draft Mondesi, you're done. And so, a guy who there is value in these other categories, and I think it's nice to show you that, yes, he does drain the other categories, but he's still about 53rd ranked overall, because that stolen base does mean a lot, and he does technically not a 0 in everything else. I think it's
right.
I do that. I just ignore him completely, and I shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, he honestly would be someone that maybe I need to reconsider if I feel like I can draft really well amongst everything else. I think I did it actually last year in the same league that we talked about. I had Soto and Freeman and some other really great OBP. It's OBP league. If
Take the hit.
I think Mondesi got dropped, and I don't know why or what.
Oh, he was like,
but I picked
he
him
almost
up.
got sent down. Yeah.
I picked him up, and I tried to, play him sparingly. But like, if you full well know that, that's a strategy thing. I mean, like, but that might be more beneficial to like me, who just, if one player can really benefit my team and I can buoy that OBP with other players that I'm better in tune with to identify in real time as the draft goes on.
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting to do.
I think it's easier in auction because like you said, we did the home draft. I had my first 4 hitters. My average OBP was 391. I had such a buffer, it was ridiculous, and I should have gone after someone like Mondesi because I could easily absorb that buffer of the OBP hit and basically get stolen bases right off the bat, like from everybody. I could have easily. I gave myself such a buffer in that regard. That's what I was bringing it up. Mondesi would have been my perfect. I didn't need to go after these other couple of guys. I didn't go after anybody like crazy, but I did with some late picks go after guys that were going to get some steals because I needed them. Not trying to win the category, but just trying not to get a 0 in a category, Because I noticed, like you, like some people were getting 0s, and I go, well, I could sneak a category here and there from some of these people just by getting a guy who steals a couple. I'm not going after the guy who got Mondesi, but I just need to like bottom. I could be like bottom or 1 through 7. That's fine. I just don't want to be like getting 3 a season or something like that.
Right. I think now I'm thinking it through. Each league you play is a little different categories and format. Definitely strategy. I mean, that one it's 1 win each week. It's head to head, 1 win. Most categories gets the 1 win, and least amount gets the loss. So punting is more prevalent,
more viable. Yeah.
You can, especially in that format. And so I feel very in tune with that one, where I felt really good on the value I got with my pitching staff. Speaking of which, flying the quality start flag there, shirt on right now. But yeah, I mean, it's maybe having different ways to draft or different avenues. I think at a certain point in the draft, you're picking your player. But I think in the first initial, well, depending on how deep your league is, but at least the first initial 5 to 10 rounds, depending, you don't know which way the draft is going to come to you, no matter what the format. So it would be really interesting to evaluate, and depending on your format, you could make your own little stat or whatever. I have another one I want to bring up, but maybe after our last home league draft. It was really interesting. All I say was I had this idea, so I downloaded the Fangraphs data and I plugged it in, and what it gave me, the first 15 players it listed as the best for what I was doing, was almost identical to the ADP on any format you see out there in a snake draft. It was almost eerie. It was like the top 3 pitchers are like 7, 8, 9, and the other 15, the other 15 accompanying them in the top 15, it was almost mirrored the ADP. And I was like, ooh, I might be onto something. It was pretty cool.
So you're gonna tell me right before we do our last draft together? Like, what's up?
Oh, maybe.
No, it's okay.
But anyway,
I just want to say, look, I'll give the example of mine. So, like I said, I had a bunch of OBP guys, and I kind of had to. So we were there. I saved a bunch of money. Everyone in the draft got pissed because I had all this money saved up, and I basically went for like the guys I really wanted after a certain point. And my whole draft went on, not whole draft, but a large part of my draft, because I didn't do Mondesi or those kind of guys. I wanted Madrigal because I figured he was going to get on base at a decent clip and steal me some bases. And I went with Dylan Moore because I feel if nothing else, he's going to go. Regardless of stolen bases, he's going to give it a shot. And that's all, like I said, in fantasy, that's all I care about. And those two guys should get me a decent number of like just straight up like at least attempts. 24, yeah.
Boom. I mean, I remember his name being way up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at me, he got 12 stolen bases. 12 stolen bases and 8 home runs. I'm not going to say he's going to be like a 25 guy. I only drafted Dylan Moore for that stolen base category. He was like my last, he's even a bench guy for me. So depending on the week or day or whatever, I'll plug him in. But it's just that I needed somebody just not to get last or somebody not to get next to last. And just to steal like what you said, it's a 1-win category. I didn't want to invest because you could punt steals, but I didn't want to invest a ton into it. But I had a bunch of money. I think I spent like between the two players. I think I spent like $18 between those two. And I was like, I'll spend $18 and basically not get last in a category. And I thought that was value-wise, that was worth it.
Yep. You know, one name I just popped in my head was Biggio, because so far in his career, he hasn't been caught stealing. And he walks and he walks and he almost to his detriment doesn't even swing. I think we talked about that previously on an episode. Sitting here. Another thought, I don't know, we're probably running up against time, just wanting to look at some names that didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but near the top. Slater, I know he's still slated as a fourth outfielder right now on the Giants, but what he did with what he was given in 2020, definitely he's going to be a free agent on most leagues. You could definitely put a watch list tag on that player.
We talked about that last podcast. Those San Francisco Giants, they always have these guys who rank really high in these metrics. There's sneaky little offense there.
Brian Hayes is the Pirates. I'm not even sure if it matters who else is on that team, unfortunately, for his true counting stats, but in terms of his skills, he's up here.
And I think I think in general, it obviously helps a little bit, but I think in most of the part that's overblown because at the end of the day, if you are X number of hitter, we've seen Trout be on just terrible teams, you will get your stats. Now, they might be better if you're on the Yankees or whatever, but you'll still, if you're, hitting 35 home runs, you're still going to get your 100 RBIs. You're still going to find a way to get your 80 runs or something like that, batting third. You'll get there. But yes, it'd be better if he was on not the Pirates. As someone who drafted it in this very league, I'm very much aware.
I just noticed there's only a handful of, which makes sense, only a handful of players that did not even attempt a stolen base. Brandon Belt, top 10, and the way we have it weighted right now, Ozuna.
Which is kind of what I like seeing. It's rewarding the people who at least go.
Yeah.
It should be.
But I mean, like, it speaks to their skills to be able to hang with a Trey Turner and a Ramirez right here that chipped in at a good clip, 75+%, and
Brandon Belt walked to a strikeout ratio.
That's what I'm saying is like
straight up 1-to-1.
Ozuna and Will Smith here, and Rendon. Ever heard of him?
No.
I call him Big Papa.
That's my JT knows that's my guy. He's just teasing me right now with
it. Clint Frazier, best ginger I've seen on the list so far.
Is it the only ginger you've seen on the list so far?
I don't know. We haven't had our monthly meeting yet this month, but just we could go all day through these names, but it's just fun exercise in terms of like, because we're so focused on. I mean, I don't know, again, I talked to Toby Batflip Crazy on Twitter, and if you listen to him enough, he talks about a stool analogy in terms of pitchers and hitters need to have a certain balance of a stool, like 3-legged or 4-legged stool. And for batters, if I can remember this off the top of my head, plate discipline, contact, and some form of kind of barrels, hard hit, launch angle, things like that. So, and contact being ground ball, fly ball, line drive, stuff like that, and then pull, oppo, things like that. So definitely something that speaks to the skill, and I guess
overall
just
skill
kind of
incorporates skill base. Yeah.
more in tune with the fantasy view of things.
I think a good way now to think about it is of looking at this is incorporates the whole fantasy player rather than looking at them as stats and columns, because you're looking at a guy who steals bases, you're looking at a guy who hits home runs. This is what they do in total, and I think that's a really good way to look at it. This is the guys higher on the list will give you the most value overall.
Yeah, as long as they're playing time and probably in a good
playing time and health,
health, yeah. And then I mean, if they're doing these good things, you would think they're batting in the top half of the order.
Yeah.
Unless you're Will Smith and you're just on a stacked team, but at least that speaks to more opportunities for those RBIs and runs like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to play around the weights, but another something where I just kind of had a random idea, saw something, and just kind of wanted to dive into it a little further. So pretty fun. I think we're kind of close. I mean, I do see a good
it's at least a good starting point. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of just like your 2020 types and your 15-15s, and just as long as they're walking a solid percentage of the time and not completely just whiffing all the time at the plate, and putting some type of power, slugging almost kind of type thing in the wOBA part of it. Pretty cool. All right. Yeah. So I guess the third thing I want to talk about is in the future, but I'm pretty excited. But I honestly, like, part of me is I definitely want to share it. The other part of me wants to win our home league. So I feel like it's not
That's
like
fine.
anyone's
I get
listening in, but
the draft's in a couple of weeks, so we'll save it for next month.
In terms of our home league, I mean, I'm speaking to the one person that one of the handful that I fear year in year and out competing against for the trophy. But
if you just get to the finals against me, you're gonna win. So don't worry about it. That's my finals, is the semifinals.
Yeah. Well, part of me is like I feel like I could talk about it and someone, but oh, that's cool, good idea, but actually executing on it was pretty intense. And again, I had my wife help enormously with my Excel spreadsheet, and Toby chipped in some thoughts and ideas and opinions. And he even said, sorry if I'm being too harsh. I mean, rain on your parade, basically. But I was like, no, this is good, because like I understand where he's coming from, and I just had an idea and wanted to see it, on a spreadsheet. So we'll probably talk about that next week or two. It might be before draft, but all right. Until next time, he is Sean. You can find him on Twitter at Sean_Beatty. I am JT. Twitter at JT_the Ginger. Until then, take care.
See ya.
Bye.